Every 3 minutes, someone dies. Not from war, not from disaster, but because Elon Musk and Donald Trump decided to cut off aid to the world's most desperate. In February 2025, the United States Agency for International Development, better known as USAID, was dismantled. What was once America's arm of hope for the world became its symbol of greed and cruelty. Behind the scenes, Trump was back in office and Musk running the so-called Department of Government Efficiency. The fallout? Over 300,000 deaths so far, most of them children. This video will examine the casualties and the real-life horror story of how cutting wasteful spending turned into cutting off food, medicine, and life itself. USAID wasn't just another federal agency. It was America's most powerful tool of diplomacy and compassion, working in over 100 countries and saving millions of lives for pennies on the dollar. It helped fight disease, feed hungry children, protect women in crisis, and stop epidemics before they reached American shores. But in January 2025, just hours after his swearing in, President Trump signed an executive order pausing all foreign aid. The language was so vague, even his own team didn't know what to do. 2 weeks later, USAID was gone. The dismantling wasn't slow and careful. It was brutal and chaotic. No warning, no transition plan, just silence. Enter Elon Musk, now head of the Department of Government Efficiency, D.O.G.E. His mission? Cut $2 trillion from the federal budget, starting with USAID. He didn't bring in humanitarian experts or development economists. Instead, he sent in a 23-year-old coder and a high school graduate who called himself Big Balls to investigate waste. You heard that right. Musk's D.O.G.E squad froze programs mid-operation. They fired USAID employees by the thousands. They shut down computers and email systems, even for staff evacuating dangerous zones or managing Ebola outbreaks. Musk proudly posted that he spent the weekend feeding USAID into the wood chipper. Meanwhile, life-saving medicines sat rotting in warehouses. Children waited for food that never came. According to Dr. Brooke Nichols, an infectious disease professor at Boston University, a child or adult now dies every 3 minutes due to the fallout from USAID's shutdown. Over 300,000 people have already died. 200,000 of them were children. Her model was so grim, she couldn't believe it at first. But it was backed by real data and peer-reviewed. Here's what those deaths look like. In Liberia, a young pregnant mother, Yama Freeman, bled to death after her ambulance sat idle. It had no fuel because USAID funding stopped. Her 2 daughters, ages 3 and 6, now cry for their mother each night. In Sierra Leone, entire villages lost access to donated medicine that prevents river blindness and intestinal parasites in kids. Pills worth nothing to the U.S. now collect dust, some destined for the trash heap. In Kenya, 11-year-old Kevin Thomas died of tuberculosis after his HIV treatment was disrupted. His younger brother Victor, also HIV positive, has been out of meds entirely. USAID funded thousands of life-saving initiatives. Overnight, more than 83% of them were cut. HIV clinics closed in Kenya, where over 66,000 girls had stayed HIV-free thanks to USAID's Dreams program. Now, some of them have turned to sex work to survive. Food programs in Malawi's refugee camps were slashed. A pregnant woman was trampled to death in a riot over reduced rations. A camp built for 10,000 refugees now holds 55,000. With less than 600 calories per person per day. Entire communities were abandoned. Violence, trafficking, and child hunger skyrocketed. In one cable, U.S. diplomats warned that cuts to aid in Somalia and Nigeria were making terrorist groups stronger. Aid workers were told to keep quiet. Internal dissent was punished as insubordination. One by one, whistleblowers were walked out of the building, some by armed guards. Trump and Musk denied the toll. They said it was fake and called USAID a radical psyop. But internal memos and whistleblower complaints told a different story. An estimated 6 lives were saved every minute by USAID before the shutdown. That's over 3 million lives a year. The World Food Program lost 40% of its funding in 2025. Nearly half of that had come from the U.S. In West Africa, USAID warehouses filled with drugs to fight elephantiasis, schistosomiasis, and river blindness now sit locked up. In just a few months, entire disease response systems, decades in the making, unraveled. The president of Refugees International put it bluntly: no one is steering the bus. This wasn't about waste. Was USAID perfect? Of course not. Some programs were bloated. Some contracts went to big DC firms. But fraud was no worse than any other agency. The Inspector General said so himself, right before he was fired. This wasn't about fraud. It wasn't about efficiency. If it were, they wouldn't have canceled the programs monitoring fraud, or fired the staff trying to prevent abuse, or shut down $100,000 programs while protecting billion-dollar contracts for politically connected firms. What it was really about was optics. DOGE wanted viral waste, something that could be mocked online, like a program sending condoms to Gaza. Only it wasn't Gaza in the Middle East. It was Gaza province in Mozambique. And the condoms? They were part of a family planning program to reduce teenage pregnancy. But the truth didn't matter. The lies went viral. Trump told it anyway. The end of USAID isn't just destroying lives abroad. It's damaging American power. Diplomats are warning that cutting humanitarian aid opens the door for China and Russia to swoop in. In Liberia, leaders are already in talks with Beijing. In El Salvador, U.S. funding for anti-corruption efforts vanished the day before Trump's Secretary of State met with its president. Meanwhile, thousands of USAID staff around the world lost their jobs. Many were locals who ran community clinics and schools. And back home, Americans barely heard a whisper. No press conferences, no nationwide debates. Just a slow, brutal purge. And then, silence. On February 3rd, 2025, the world's richest man, while allegedly using narcotic drugs, tweeted the final blow. We spent the weekend feeding USAID into the wood chipper. Inside the Ronald Reagan Building in Washington, D.C., staff packed up photos and keepsakes for colleagues who would never return. A few floors above, DOGE staff, many 20-something-year-old without security clearance, celebrated their victory. That same week, a child died of malaria in Liberia, another of pneumonia in Kenya, and another in Malawi, too malnourished to survive. This isn't about budgets. It's about lives. Innocent, poor, forgotten lives. And now, there's a hole in the world where America's outstretched hand used to be. The death toll continues to rise. Aid groups are still scrambling. Some programs are clawing their way back. But most are gone. Gone like the children they were supposed to save. This isn't just a story about policy. It's about who we are, because no nation is truly great or powerful if it can't care for the most vulnerable, not just within its borders, but beyond them. And the world is watching. Please subscribe to the channel to see more shocking videos about our government's actions. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.